So hi everyone. Casper is logging back in. So Casper, who will introduce himself in a moment, is just logging in as England handball. So if you just want to stay on mute for a moment. So I think Jamie, thank you. Luke, I don't know if you just want to put thank you. And Casper, here he is. Over to you, Casper. Again, I think we might be waiting one or two. I know one or two, a bit like whoever it was who commented about people moving in earlier. Can't remember who that was. Hannah and others are moving in for accommodation. So you can, and you are recording. That's great. Joelle is in here too. So I think we're almost there, Casper. So I'll just mute myself and pass over to you. Phrase of 2020, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
My bad. There you go. I've just done an hour's work, so I think I'll have a hang of doing this by now. Hello, lads. Welcome back, or say welcome to the new DiSE session. My name's Casper, and I'm the sports psychologist that you'll be working with over the next 2 years as part of the DiSE program. The aim of today's workshop is just to give you a nice, easy introduction into the area of sports psychology, what you guys might expect of engaging within the workshop, and just learn a few practical tips along the way. I don't like to have my workshops being me just speaking the whole time. So what we're going to do is throughout the session, there's going to be some question and answers. I'm conscious that some of you might feel a bit nervous to speak on microphone or on camera. So the main way we're going to do question and answers is through the chat feature. So the little chat box. So I'll say a question and then you put your answers within that chat box. So again, it avoids you having to be conscious of speaking verbally, but you are welcome to if you want to, okay? What I'm going to do is in a second, I'm just going to share my screen. And then what I want you to do is once you can see the slide, I want you in the chat box just to put a thumbs up so I'm aware that you can see the screen. Yep, thumbs up, fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Yep, great stuff. So again, one more. We've got about 15 minutes and I'm going to try to finish 5 minutes early, just so like you guys can go off for your lunch and stuff. Like I said, I'm a sports psychologist and I'm going to explore in the area of sports psychology, why it's important, how it can benefit you personally, not just for your performance, but your overall well-being. Before I jump into anything sports psych, and I've been doing this in one workshops recently, you guys have just gone through probably something that you'll never go through, hopefully again, probably something you never expected to go through, and it probably taught you a lot in terms of who you are, what's important, but also more importantly, why is mindset important? So what I want you to do just to get started into the swing of like kind of psychology, what I want you to think about is what has lockdown and what is your personal experiences through the last 6 months taught you about the importance of a positive mindset and using your mindset to keep you going through the tough times and feeling positive. So again, like I just mentioned at the start, put those answers in the chat box for me. That'd be great. Importance of resilience. Okay, I like that. How to keep refreshed and not get bored. I tell you what, I've struggled with that one. Important to keep a focus on your goals. Okay, motivation. Keep occupied. I like that. Patience, motivation. Learn to adapt. I like that. Motivation again. Patience. Find motivations. Ways to be productive. Just give you 30 more seconds. Block out the negatives and find the positives in life. Okay. I like that one. So again, some great answers, and I appreciate, boys, I appreciate you sharing those and being honest with me, because it helps me out when I'm doing this workshop. Because probably the biggest thing I know as a young athlete, especially as well, one of the biggest ways of de-stressing, relaxing, keeping positive is physical activity. So doing the sport you love. So whether that is handball, running, cycling, walking. When lockdown hit, those got taken away. So your main source of coping was taken away. So very quickly, you kind of forced to adapt without kind of being given the time to learn, to improve, identify alternative coping strategies. So it's nice to see that you're already on it, thinking, right, what can I do currently to keep myself going? Do I need to shift my mindset? What can I focus on to keep me going? Often, a lot of us focused on routine, being occupied, focusing on other things, learning new things. I'm sure we could all agree that we all had probably great routines at the start, probably the first couple of months. I had a great routine. I had times when I got up, time when I had coffee, time when I chatted to my mates, time when I went out on the PS4. Nowadays, I'm just going with the flow, just do whatever, because I can't be bothered. It's too mentally demanding now to keep a routine. And personally, as a psych, routines get disrupted all the time, so you can't be too fixated. So the key thing that you've probably used within lockdown is a skill known as perspective thinking. You've had to shift your perspective. It could have been very easy to think, right, everything's gone to pot, everything's struggling, what's the point? I can't be bothered, I'm not going to keep going. But you can't do that because you need to keep going, you're not sure what's going on. So one of the things we tend to do as humans is ask ourselves questions to help develop a more positive perspective. So for this task, you can see there's probably about, I think there's 6 questions on there. Some of these questions you might have personally used during your lockdown experience to help develop a more positive perspective and keep going. So what I want you to do is, in chat box, is just write down questions or statements that you used personally to shift your perspective on a stressful situation like lockdown. And maybe just choose some of the questions and say why they helped you out. Focus on the good times. I like that. The question about progress being stopped was a useful one. I like that. Yeah, even myself, the progress one, I had about 4 training sessions. So personal development things that I use as like to improve my own understanding of the world and athletes. And 4 of them got cancelled. Only 1 was rearranged, and there were things that I was looking forward to. And it frustrated the hell out of me that I couldn't do anything or they weren't changing it. So I felt for a brief moment that my own personal development as a psychologist was stopped. How can I change what? Okay, how can I change what I need to change? Keep your goals in front of your mind. I like that. Mentally blocking out what's happening. Okay. Make your goal your main priority. So I'm guessing you lads probably felt that thing that your main goal before lockdown had to shift a little bit. So instead of it being handball maybe related or mainly handball related, it had to shift to mainly to making yourself feel, make sure your well-being's positive, your family's okay, your schoolwork's still keeping on top of things. So again, shifting and changing what you focus on was probably really important. So it's nice to see that you lads were doing that. And the reason that I've done these kind of last two questions is to think about, from a sport perspective, you don't often sit down and think, right, what mental skills do I need to improve on? What do I need to think about from a sports perspective? But in your everyday life, you're doing psychology and mental skills training every single day. And lockdown has probably been an opportunity to really develop that. And by asking these questions to you, perspective thinking is a very valuable and effective way of helping dealing with emotions, dealing with mistakes, dealing with opponents that are doing your head in. It's a really helpful skill. So if you can refine that, and it can be helpful for you in like some aspects of your life which aren't sport related, the focus is trying to apply that skill within sport, because you've already done some of the work. You've already learned how to do it. All you need to do now is apply it in a different context. So again, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. So moving on to now a little bit more sport focused. So we've talked about psychology and mental skills from that holistic and kind of well-being perspective. But the program that you embark on within DiSE is more focused on enhancing your sporting performance using mental skills. Okay, so from that, I would say sports psychology is simply this: sports psychology is using the power of your mind to give the power to the body. So what I mean by this is, physically you have all these resources, your strength, your fitness, your speed, and mentally you need to instruct your body how to use them effectively. If you don't do that, you're going to struggle to perform well. So as a psych, I love my quotes, and you've got 3 quotes on there from 3 athletes. You've got Muhammad Ali on the left-hand side. He says, "It's a lack of faith that makes people afraid of meeting challenges, and I believe in myself." On the right, you've got Michael Jordan, which you're very familiar with. Some people want it to happen. Some people wish it could happen. Others make it happen. And you've got one in the middle. Just because someone says it's impossible doesn't mean you can't do it. And I asked the girls this, and to see if you might get this. The middle one hasn't got a name for the athlete. And there's a clue there for 3 minutes 59.4. I want you to guess who is that athlete in the middle, because his statement really kind of emphasizes the importance of a positive mindset. So I'll give you a minute just to try and guess who you might feel that is, and use the principle that he's a runner and the 3 minute 59 as a clue of who he might be. Hey, well done, Jamie. Very quick. Rodish Bannister. Well done, Jamie was on it straight away. Shame I haven't got like a financial prize or award I can give to you. Just Roger, known as Roger. Again, so Roger Bannister, back when he was competing as a professional athlete, it was known as impossible to run the mile under 4 minutes. And he was the first athlete to do that. Nowadays, big Rog, like that. Nowadays, it's quite a common occurrence. Again, things have improved, training methods have improved, but back then, no one thought you could run under 4 minutes, and he proved that. So debunking that myth, just because someone says it's impossible, doesn't mean you can't do it. And it's a principle that I would always recommend to athletes to kind of take on board. Things can be tough, and to prove someone wrong, yeah, it takes a lot of work, but there's many a times that elite athletes have pushed limits away and got rid of things, and that's why world records are still broken. It'd be interesting to see when there's that cap of like how fast people can run, but so far new records are still getting broken. So moving on a little bit more now about kind of psychology, and this is why as a psychologist I feel the mindset is important, and you probably realize this, and it all starts about how you think and what you think about, because it moves on to that creates certain feelings, to certain emotions, then those emotions will dictate how you behave. So if you're feeling vulnerable, scared, overwhelmed, lacking confidence, anxious, that often causes you to avoid situations, make mistakes, focus on the wrong things. So it's all about developing the helpful thoughts and getting rid of the unhelpful thoughts. On the right-hand side of that slide, you can see 4 areas of performance, all of them that you're familiar with: technical, physical, tactical, and psychological. So what I want you to do now is, in the chat box, if you had 100% to play with, how would you allocate the importance of each area? So would you go 25% to each area in terms of its importance? Would you give 35 to one area, 10% to another? What I want you to think about is, for each area, how important is it to you? How important is it to work upon that performance area? And then just throw those stats into the chat box for me. $25 each. across the board. Do you know what? I like that easy word. Just do you know what? I'm just gonna say quarter for each one. Saves me thinking. 35% psychological. They're all important in their own situations. I like that answer. Anyone daring and choosing an area that's not very, not very important? I always like to ask this question because there's always one athlete who goes, "Nah, tactical is not very important. Nah, technical is not important." Trick answer. I like that. 100% to all. 110. All right, here we go. We're getting all cocky now, aren't we? Going 45% psychological. I like that. You're trying to make me like you because I'm a psychologist, so I'm going to be biased. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for these answers. And again, there's no right or wrong answers per se. Everybody's got a different view of what's important. As a psychologist, I feel that the mindset is the most important because the mindset gives you instructions of how to do technical skills, how to perform something. From physical training, you need the instructions to go out and do it. So a lot of it is giving your brain the instructions to do something, which is why I feel psychology can be more important. But that point about different contexts is a very important consideration. So what I'm going to do now is just to kind of emphasize like how mindset can very quickly impact your performance is I'm going to show you a video. I don't think the sound's working, but what I want you to look at is how the tennis player behaves, and then I'll explain afterwards who it is and what's going on. On a side note, can everybody see the video? Yeah? Okay. So, does everybody know who that is in the chat box? Do anyone know who that athlete is? Still competing as well. So he's probably mid-20s now. Yeah, Kiggs, Nick Kyrgios, Australian tennis player. And if you're into tennis, you might be very familiar with his behaviour. That had an example. In that moment, Nick Kyrgios completely lost it mentally. And in his interview, he said that a stat that the interviewer came out with, he made 68 unforced errors. 68. And you can see that he was talking to the umpire, he was questioning the umpire, he was smashing his racket. Nick Kyrgios is a very emotionally driven athlete, and he was known as an athlete who was tipped to do great things because he was successful very, very young. But constantly he's been fined by the Tennis Federation for poor behaviours, misbehaving, because mentally his mindset is very, very up and down. He can perform amazingly when his mindset's on it, but perform really poorly when his mindset's off it. So the whole aim of sports psychology and mental skills training is trying to develop a consistent mindset that helps you perform and have consistent performances that are well. So that is why we've got on the slide. Dave, you can guess who this is. It's a guy called John McEnroe, and he's been in adverts as well. If you ever watched, I think it was a yoga advert. I might be wrong, but he was a famous tennis player. He won Wimbledon in the 70s and 80s. Unfortunately, you don't see that type of hair nowadays. He said the phrase, "You cannot be serious when a mistake has happened." But I want to shift away from that negative performance. And what I want you to do as athletes right now is I want you to think about your favorite performance or your most successful performance that you've had either as a handball athlete, playing a different sport. And what I want you to do within that is once you've got that kind of performance in mind, so when it was going really, really well, I want you to ask yourself these questions, okay? What was going well mentally? What emotions were you thinking, or what emotions were you feeling? Were you focused on anything? Was there any sort of thoughts going around? Spend 60 seconds just reliving that best performance and use those questions and put the answers within the chat box. You're just thinking about, in that moment, what was I thinking about? Was I thinking about anything? Was I feeling good? Was I confident? Just put those answers within those chat box for me. That'd be great. Must win game. If I don't do it, who else will step up? I like that. I was taking as it comes to going in the flow. So minimizing that focus, I like that. Must win game. Played a big part in helping the team. Okay, so that team, I like that. So you're thinking about a team result, not necessarily your personal performance. High flow, I like that. You're probably going to, from a site perspective, you're probably going to hear the word being in the flow or in the zone a lot from me. Anyone about emotions? Can anyone think about when they had this decent performance? Oh, there you go. Answers my question. Relaxed and confident. Focus on what I could do to win. Wasn't thinking about much, felt calm, just went with it. I like that. That's a key thing. Trust in my ability, key one. So you can probably see the reason I asked this question is you want to think about what mental factors help you perform well. If you're aware of that, then obviously you want to replicate them. If you're not aware of them, it's kind of very trial and error. So if you know that you need to minimize how many things you focus on and just focus on being in the moment, just trusting yourself, those are the basic things. You obviously want to try and do that more and more and more. It might not always pan out for you, but if the majority of the time that works for you, then the whole key thing is replicating those successful conditions for you and minimizing the things that don't help out. Okay. And that's why I've got the question there. Why wouldn't you want to perform consistently like that? Obviously, sometimes external things get in the way, but if you can do everything within your own control and practice, have routines and behaviors that help you perform better and make a mindset which is good for performance, that's one step closer to success. So just kind of finishing off, we're now thinking about mental skills, actual mental skills training. We've talked about why it's important and how much of, in terms of performance areas, why is it important. But now I want to get an idea is currently, how much training do you do as an athlete on the mental side of your game? You, during lockdown, have done a lot of mental skills training in terms of developing different perspectives, thinking more positive about life, what could happen from things. And what we want to do is transfer that skills within sport. So again, another percentage question, or we could do it via minutes questions. What I want you to think about, if you looked at your normal training routine, how many minutes do you spend training on each performance area? So the physical training, tactical side, the technical side, but also your mental side, and just throw those answers into the chat box for me. Use before and after. Okay. And boys, be honest, if you feel like you don't spend any minutes at all training on that mental side, be honest with me. 50%, 35%, okay. So that's it. So the boys that, if you choose 20 or if you choose very low numbers for the mental side, what I want you to ask about now is the question on that slide, why do you not spend a lot of time on the mental skills training? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's always a reason behind it. And often it's not your own fault. So what I want you to think about, what are the reasons why there's so little time given to your mental skills training? So again, if I'm aware of that, I can then try to help out overcome that barrier and try to increase the number of minutes that you spend within your training regime. Not just an aspect of I like that. Don't know how to train it. Okay, so education, I like that. $30 for rest. Yeah, rest is probably the most important thing. I like that. Anything else on why you may not train them outside? So you've got lack of understanding of how to apply. Not traditional. I like that one as well. Not traditional. So again, this whole structure of training has been done in a certain way for so many years. It's hard to shift away from that. Lack of understanding isn't something that we always come to mind when thinking about performance. Okay. So it's awareness. I like that one. What about, and I always ask this, what about coaches? Sometimes coaches, what you focus on as an athlete always comes down to what the coach tells you to focus on, what the coach talks about. So do your local sport coaches, do they talk about the psychology side of games that often? Barely. Okay, I like the honesty. Again, as well, the reason I asked that question is a lot of psychs don't necessarily work directly with athletes. They work through the coach. So for athlete, if there's not enough time for athletes to stand with a psychologist, the psych will teach the coach how to change the language, put more emphasis on the psychology side. So then the athletes are more motivated to train on that side. In every drill, there's a mental side. I like that. I like that. Usually when I speak to a coach, the main focus is usually about physical aspects and technical, then mindset. Okay. So that order that coach speaks to you in dictates when you're doing training on your own, what you focus on first. I like that. Okay. So moving on then. So again, I appreciate the answers and I like the honesty, which is really, really, really good. So if I'm aware of that, I can start to do things to help you overcome those potential barriers and increase the number of times you train on the mental side. So just to give a bit of emphasis now, this is, you can see a triangle. Put a thumbs up or a yes if you can see the triangle for me. So again, I'm not sure whether the things can be seen on your side. Brilliant, fantastic. So this is the kind of structure you go through when you're training the mental side of your game. There's 3 phases, okay? There's the education phase, which you're currently doing right now. I teach you and you understand why psychology is important, what mental skills are needed to meet your own handball demands. What do you need to learn about? Pretty much learn about why psychology is important for performance. Once you understand it's important, then the second bit is how do you do that? How do you learn and improve it? So you shift into a thing known as the acquisition phase, which means is I give you the tools, you go try them out during training sessions and competitive matches, see what works, what doesn't work, and you tweak things. You work upon them, like your technical skills. The final phase is known as the practice phase. So this is all about automaticity and being subconscious. So by this phase, you've trained your mental skills enough times for them to become automatic. So a good example could be you've got a pre-performance routine that you use every performance to be psyched up and mentally ready for a game. Or you've got a certain statement that you say to yourself to have you reset after a mistake. Over the next 2 years, the whole point of this program is shifting from stage 1 in the education and moving up to the practice phase. And you will go this on a loop. The education applies to one context. So then once you've done that one context, you then look at another context of what skills you need for that situation. It keeps happening. But it's a very simple 3-step approach to mental skills training. So first phase, and we've kind of just spent the last half an hour doing this. And these are 2 questions. What is it? So mental skills training is a structured and systematic program of you learning skills to enhance your performance. So over time, you do it in a systematic, a structured order. Okay. And the reason you do that is to meet the demands of performance, enhance your overall performance, but also improve your well-being as well, because we can't deny things outside of sport influence your sport performance. So mental skills often has a crossover in terms of improving your well-being, because if your well-being is improved, your performance improves. Why is it important? Again, I need to obviously get you to be motivated and believe in this. There's so much research out there coming out that if you improve and even one mental skill is going to improve your overall performance. And you probably, if you look at the top interviews of elite athletes, they always talk about mindset, psychology, and this, that, and the other. So again, there's so much reason why it's important. And the research, there's numbers and hundreds of research studies that have backed up of why it's important to embark on mental skills training. So to make things interesting for you, and this is just to help you. I've talked about mental skills training and this, that, and the other. I'm not giving it specific examples of what's important in terms of mental skills. So this is taken from a thing known as the Gold Medalist Project. So what they did here is they interviewed a number of elite athletes and asked them what psychological factors helped you get to the top, helped you perform. Okay. Some of these factors you'll be familiar with, some of these you might not be familiar with. And I'm just going to go through each one, okay? So the first one, and every athlete always talks about this, is high self-confidence and feelings of being in control. And you talked about this when I asked you talking about your best performance. If you're confident within yourself, you're going to trust yourself and trust the process. You're not going to overthink things. Second one, you feel in control. So you feel you can influence the outcome of a situation. So if you're in that one-to-one scenario where you got to shoot on goal, if you feel confident in yourself that you can score a goal, you feel in control. If you feel out of control, you're more likely to make a mistake. Mental toughness. So the reason why I say this is people get confused between mental toughness and mental resilience. They have a lot of similarities, but also there's one key difference. Mental resilience means when you're under a pressurized and stressful situation, you cope well, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that your mindset is positive, but you've got through it. Mental toughness, the key part of it is the positive mindset. So when you're under a stressful situation, you remain positive and confident you can get through the situation successfully. The ability to use a wide range of mental skills in different scenarios, which is the key one. This you might have one mental skill that works for you in one situation, but it doesn't work in every situation. So a top athlete has a range of skills that they can use to apply to different situations, so they're adaptable, which is what you talked about at the start. Goal orientation. So this is simply the type of goals you have as an athlete. And this study talked about you need to have a combination of both, a thing known as ego orientation, which is all about you wanting to look the best, be the best in comparison to other people. And then secondly as well, your learning goals or your task oriented goals. So having goals focused on personal development, reviewing your own progress. So having a combination of wanting to be the best in front of other people, but also focus on your own self is really important. Motivation. So as an athlete, and you probably hear this a lot, it's important to have both types of motivation. You might have read that the most influential type of motivation for performance is intrinsic or internally. So you're motivated to feel good about yourself. But as humans, we are driven by external rewards as well. And we can't deny that. And it'd be bad to ignore that. So the research suggests that you need a combination of being both extrinsically motivated. So you want to have recognition in front of the public from your coaches, financial awards or trophies, but also you also do the sport because you want to feel good about yourself and your whole self-concept. You want to feel good because you've shown to yourself you can succeed within handball. The ability to cope with adversity. So that's more that resilient side. Emotional regulation. So again, this is a skill that as an athlete, as you grow up, is something that you always have to work with because emotions can be very, very powerful in terms of influencing your performance. Challenge mindset. So this is something which is more recent, a little bit different. So challenge mindset, what that means is when it comes to a pressurized situation, you view it as a positive challenge to learn, improve, and adapt. Whereas if you have a threat mindset, what this means by this is when you're pressurized situation, you're stressed out, you view it as a negative threat. So you can't cope, things are going to go wrong. If an athlete has a challenge mindset, even though they might fail, they still take it in a positive way and think, right, what can I learn to improve? So if I'm faced with the same situation again, I know what to do next time. High game intelligence. And before me explaining this, what I want you to do is I want you to write down in the chat box, what do you think high game intelligence is? Because this is one of the skills that when research was done within handball, this is one of the skills that popped out as being one of the key psychological factors of elite handball athletes. So again, in the chat box, just write down what you think game intelligence is. Good decision making. Thinking outside the box. I like that, understanding their position. Okay, so it's more like you're moving towards a deep understanding of every aspect of the game. I like that. Understanding the team roles, quick decision making under pressure, understanding the game's tempo. So reading the game. I like that. Reading the moment, quick decision making. Anything else? Good decision making without thinking. I like that. Very, very good answer. So what that means is letting your subconscious guide your game. So again, we talked about habits. If you do it over and over again, you don't have to worry about constantly thinking about something. It's already programmed in there, so your subconscious can just guide you. So you don't have to overthink things. I like that. Any more? Anticipating your opponent. I like that. So again, reading scenarios, thinking about what might happen. Very, very good. So as you can see, even that topic, there's so many different aspects of it. And from a handball perspective, you know, it's such a key skill. To kind of to develop that skill and grow from it, it comes from education, learning, training hours. It's something that takes time to develop, especially as you get older. But if you can get that pretty refined and succeed on that very quickly, it's a very key indicator of you going from mediocre to successful. So we're now shifting a bit more focus, and what you've got on this slide, these are mental skills that are talked about within the DiSE program that we look at. And you will have lots of links to that study that I talked about just a minute ago and things that you guys have talked about. And on there, there's 14 mental skills or mental demands. And what I want you to do is look at those 14 demands. Is as athletes, I want you in the chat box just to write down maybe 2 or 3 areas which you feel you personally might want to work upon over the next couple of years. You feel maybe I'm weaker in these areas, and just choose 2 or 3 for me. Pop them in the chat box. Motivation, self-confidence, dealing with failure, mental toughness, self-confidence, mental toughness. Oh, BSO, control and emotion. Self-confidence, do you know what? I'm not surprised that's popping up, because I can imagine as an athlete, you've felt out of sync for 6 months. And even myself personally as a psychologist, if I had a break from something, I would feel rusty going back into it. So I wouldn't feel as confident. So it's natural to feel that. Control and emotions, concentration. Okay, very good. So again, the reason I asked you this question is, as part of the program, you need to identify 2 areas that you want to work upon. So by thinking about this right now, you're already doing some of the work for yourself and already giving yourself a bit of a goal. Thinking, right, if I'm lacking self-confidence, why is it? Is it because of lack of training hours? Is it because I've not had support or guidance? Is it because I've been speaking myself in a negative way? Just think about why you're feeling those areas the weakest. Already allows you to think, all right, that's the issue. How can I overcome it? So this is the bit that you as athletes hate hearing, which is goal setting. It's banged on about from athletes in school, having objectives, having areas of focus. As a psychologist, I try to shift away from saying the word smarter because it's been overused. The principles are important, but if I hear the word smarter, I switch off because I feel it's boring. So what I do is I use the principles, but don't actually use the word smarter. And I use a 5-step procedure when I'm setting myself a goal. And what I encourage you to do as an athlete is do the same sort of thing. So the first thing is, as an athlete, and I just ask you this, what do you want to improve? What do you want? Is it you want to feel more confident? Is it you want to be more assertive in those attacking situations during a gameplay? Do you want to just go with the flow, make more effective decisions? Once you've got that, you then want to create a picture, right? So if you could improve, if those things were improved, how would the future look like? So you've got a visual image of what you want to achieve. The next thing is attaching those emotions. So if you were succeeding on that, how would it feel like if you were more confident, if you were able to make better decisions? The key reason behind this is emotions are key driving forces in terms of giving you motivation to keep going when embarking on a goal. The fourth bit, and probably the key bit, is what you need to do and how you're going to achieve those goals. In the sport world, we call these process goals, the steps. So if you are lacking confidence and you realize because you don't know how to do something, the how goal would be do some research, ask a coach how to do something, get some more information. Those are the key things. The short-term and process goals are what are going to get you to that long-term vision that you want to achieve. And the final one is doing it. If you actually do it, you move a step closer. And then all you've got to do then is just reflect on, right, what's going well, what needs changing, what do I need to do more of. Okay, so moving on to now, and this is more the practical side. As a psych, I love the term habit, and habits, our whole life is guided by our behavioral habits. And what I want you to think about right now is, what habits do you currently have in your day-to-day life? What do you do automatically without even thinking about it? And just pop that in the chat box. So just think about, what do I automatically do in terms of behaviors without even really have to think about it? Breathe. I like the cockiness in that one. I like that. Eating breakfast, being incredibly lazy. I like the habit. Go and make food. Thinking. Eating. Blink. Now we're all getting cocky, aren't we? We're getting all cocky here. All right, let's think about behavior. What about more things like you get out or train? Okay, I like that. If it's automatic. I always say having a coffee in the morning, brushing your teeth, the classic ones. Having your lunch at a certain time. Shower, yeah. That's a mental routine for me. Got a shower in the morning. Right, so you can see showers are huge. Yeah. Thought you were referring to the actual size of your shower there for a second. Morning routines, eat, wash. Yeah, okay. So these are classic examples. And sometimes if you stop and think, why do I actually do it? You might not be aware. And it's often because you follow this routine. So the cue is something that activates that thought to do something. So a classic example, I'll take it from a breakfast point of view. You wake up and your belly's rumbling and you feel hungry. That cue is the cue to do something. And your craving is you want to crave to feel not satisfied, fill up, and you're energized. But to achieve that craving, you've got to do something to do that. So the routine is the behavior. So you eat food, you have a coffee, it can be a sequence of movements. And then the fourth one, I just realized I put 2 3s there. The fourth one is the reward. You achieve that craving that you feel energized because you've had the food. Take the shower example. When you wake up, you feel sluggish and you want to get going for the day. And a shower is going to give you the craving of feeling refreshed and ready to go. But the cue is waking up feeling sluggish. So that's the sluggish part. And then once you have a shower, you feel rewarded because you feel refreshed and ready to go. So then that reward is associated with the cue. So every time you wake up and feel sluggish, the cue, it activates that sequence over and over again. And the more you do it, the more you're satisfied, the more you get that reward, the more inclined your brain is to force you to do it again. And eventually it shifts into the subconscious. So it becomes an automatic behavior. From a sport perspective, we want to create loads of behavioral habits which are helpful and automatic. So for example, going to a game, you have a pre-performance routine, you automatically do. You listen to certain music, you think a certain way, you visualize something. You don't think about doing that, you just do it because you do it every time because you know it helps you feel mentally ready for a match. This is another example of what I want to achieve with you guys, is another sporting example. So this is a classic, this is in match. So a cue would be, you make a mistake and your head drops and you feel frustrated. So that's the feeling and you don't like it. So you want to change it. So to change it, your desired craving is you want to be able to focus on what you need to do next and feel positive. And classic examples from a mental skills perspective is the routine would be things such as, like I just showed you in the last one, verbal cues, like saying things to yourself, visual things, so looking at certain things, or behavioral things, so doing certain things like breathing, pulling your socks up, slapping the thighs, are classic examples. So within a routine perspective, it is, I put here 2 examples, relax and calm down, have 3 deep breaths. Because you've decided that those 2 behaviors, or the sequence of behaviors in the routine, will achieve the craving of helping you refocus and feeling calm. And the more you do that, the more it helps you out, the more you keep doing it. And then that routine becomes automatic. And again, like getting up and having a shower, you've already developed a very simple mental skills routine to help overcome making mistakes. And that's an example of what I want to help you apply in many different aspects and many different scenarios and situations within sport. Going through that routine, in the chat box, can everybody just put in if they understand what I was just going through there? Because I know sometimes there's a lot of different terms flying around. So either put a thumbs up or a yes that you understand the very basic principle of habit formation. Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Is it interesting to learn a bit more about habits instead of just hearing skills? Habits are a little bit different as well. Okay, so moving on then. This is the final phase. So we've talked about what mental skills training is, the education perspective. We've then looked at behavioural habits, why you do something, how you might do it in terms of goals, processes, which is the acquisition phase, and you try to put things into practice. Practice phase is making things automatic. So it's cognitive, you do it all the time. And these are a few little rules that I like to give to athletes just to help you get into the routine of doing mental skills training. I put there, do it 3 to 5 times a week and just 5 to 10 minutes. You might not realize that every day you're doing some form of mental skills training. And at the start of this workshop, I talked about different perspectives, thinking more positively, thinking about what you need to do. And you're doing that every single day. And you got into the habit of doing that because it helps you get through lockdown. So from a sport perspective, you just need to do it within training. So what I'm recommending is when you're at a training session, every training session, think about how your thoughts are influencing your behaviors. So if I think confidently, I will behave confidently. It's key to do it during training sessions, but also as well during the actual matches. Often I've spoken to so many athletes, I'll give them a tip and they only try to apply it during an actual competitive situation, but they've never tried, they've not trained it, they've not refined it. And often it goes wrong because they've not actually learned how to develop it. And if it goes wrong, they're unlikely to do it again. Any technical skill you do or any tactical thing or strategy, you learn it in training. So when you're on the actual pitch, you do it successfully. Same with mental skills training. You have to do it within training to work out what's going right and what's going wrong. So you can refine it there. So it reduces the chance of it going wrong during a critical moment during a match. Motivation is a key one. Again, with any behavior you do, especially mental skills training, like you talked about not being traditional, you've got to get into liking it a bit more. You've got to have the drive for it. So I say is think of the positive consequences. I want you to think about why are you doing mental skills training? Why is there a need? If you have the answers to those questions, you're more likely to stick with doing mental skills training. Okay. And last slide, self-regulation. So this, as an athlete, I can't stress this enough. This is probably a skill that we all need to get good at doing. Lockdown gave you the opportunity to do that. So we talked about routine, structure was really important. Starting things to have routine and structure because it helps you feel mentally stable. What I want you to think about right now is in terms of your lifestyle, what things do you need to regulate and keep on top of? And I want you to throw those into the chat box for me. College work, a proper sleep schedule, eating better, time. Yeah, time's a good one. I can imagine as a coach, managing the time can become very, very difficult because there's so many different things to do. Meals, fitness, college work. Right, so what I'm going to ask now, this is a bit of a funny one. When we went into lockdown, things were taken away from us. There were certain things that we wanted to do but we couldn't do, and there was less opportunity. So one of the common things that people looked at improving was fitness and your nutrition. There was this whole bandwagon of running more, walking more. You had Joe Wicks's videos. So I think it was like School PE with Joe Wicks or something. So what I want to ask about is who got on, so in the chat box, who got onto the running bandwagon or the walking bandwagon as a result of lockdown? Who got onto that? And just put that in chat. So put a yes for me if you got onto that sort of thing, just getting into running more or cycling more. Yep. Yep. The next question is, who's still doing that? You might have been motivated the first 2 months. Who's kept motivated and is still going? Put a no if you're not there anymore, maybe in the middle. Because I can tell you for a fact, and I'll be honest as a psychologist, my fitness was great for the first 3 months, and it's completely plummeted now that I can go out and do other things and go for takeaways and hope. Still doing it. I like the honesty, Kyle. Again, if you do things over and over again, it starts to become a bit repetitive and not as fun. Kind of. All right, next thing, nutrition. So Who now eats healthier as a result of lockdown? Worse, for sure. Yeah, worse. I like the honesty. Less, less Mackies. That must have been hard for you, Cal. I've not been able to go to Mackies for a few months. Better. So I can tell you for a fact, right? I'm a psychologist, not a nutritionist, and I started my shopping bill doubled in the first 2 months because I couldn't have takeaways. I thought, you know what? I'll buy more snacks for myself. I got more money to spend and play with. Nowadays, I can actually cook better. Doesn't mean I cook often, but I cook better. Great stuff. So again, just a few things that are common things, and you're shifting back into the routine of fitness now because the sport's coming back. I know it's still a bit iffy, but one of the key issues you're probably going to have with your motivation and your fitness at the moment is probably motivation. And something that you've got to work upon is, right, I need to refine that motivation to keep doing those, because those are key things that I've just mentioned that are going to help dictate whether I succeed or fail in my performances. So with that, like my goal setting framework and the habit formation, I have another framework that's helpful in terms of helping you start to improve regulation. And you can probably see like a little stairs icon. This is a model that psychologists like to use. The first one, when it comes to your self-regulation, you work out what's the problem I'm trying to regulate. So is it my sleep? Is it nutrition? What's going on? So you identify the problem and why is that problem occurring? The second one is you move to planning. So I've got an issue. How can I resolve it? Right, sleeping issue is got no routine, or I'm going on my TV or my phone late at night. I need to change that. I need to feel committed. So I need to understand why I'm doing it. If I sleep better, I perform better. Then you commit to it. Third one is then you execute that new strategy, that new routine to manage things better. And then you reflect on how things are going. Is it working for you? Is it not? What things I need to tweak? Number 4, and this is a good one, this is a big one for athletes, is environmental management, managing the things that are around you. Because there's a common term that's flying around, such as you're a product of your environment. So what I want you to think about now as an athlete, what are the distractors within your environment? What distracts you doing your goals and your objectives? And just write that in the chat box for me. Other people wanted to go out for a Chinese. So I missed that. Chinese was my favourite takeaway. Other people being the issue, I can see that. Technology, okay. Social media. Distracted by food and technology, blimey. You got a tough task in your hands, on your hands there. Laziness, I like that. So that's the habit of laziness. Nobody outside of clubs to push me, so people again. Okay, so siblings. Boys, I love the honesty in this. Don't worry, it will stay within this room. But again, there's loads of things, isn't there? Absolutely loads of things that get in the way. People be the key one. They can be key driving force to help you out, but also they also get in the way of stuff. And from a fitness and nutrition point of view, fitness is dictated. If you have a training buddy, you're more inclined to do it. If your athlete, if your mate's doing something, you want to do the same thing because you want to have something in common. Laziness, so ingrained, especially as a psychologist, it's very easy to be lazy. Technology and food. So what we're saying here is, if we take away food, take away technology, take away people, life will be easy. So we'll focus on doing that. No people, no food, no technology, and then no siblings. But again, you see there's loads of things that come into play when it comes to regulating your behavior. But some things you can sort out and manage, some things are a bit more of a struggle. The final stage is known as generalization. So what this means by this is I've, for example, taught you a mental skill that helps you perform better, like self-talk. You then apply it and generalize it in other aspects of your life. The more areas of your life that you use a skill, the easier it becomes to use, the more automatic it becomes, and often it's more successful. So what I'm trying to teach about is mental skills. We're talking about a sport perspective, But ultimately, I would love to see that these skills get used within your well-being perspective, because we know as athletes that well-being is attached to performance, and you can't disregard, as you just talked about, you can't disregard things outside of sport because it crosses over. So just to kind of summarize, these are kind of things we've talked about. So 5 key areas. Hopefully you guys have got an idea now that mental skills is important. You know about why you might want to improve it. These are 5 key areas that I'm going to constantly bang on about in terms of keeping on top of them. Self-motivation. So always remind yourself why you're doing something. Why is it important? Why is it going to benefit you? If it's not going to benefit you, you're less inclined to do it. Self-confidence. When it comes to doing your goals, you also need to be confident in the short-term goals, the processes. You need to be confident that if you put in the effort and put in the training hours, you're going to succeed. Self-directed learning, and as a coach and as a tutor, this is probably something that you bang on to your athletes too. Coaches can only do so much. You need to be assertive in your own learning. We can give you ideas, you can give you tips, but you need to get off your own back, have that own motivation to go out and train on your own, eat well, learn new things. So that's really, really important. Self-regulation, so we've talked about that already. And then self-reflection, and this is the key one. You've got to do things, but to know if things are working out, you need to reflect on how successful they are. Okay, so that pretty much brings kind of the introductory workshop to a close. Hopefully you guys got a bit more of an idea of what to expect from working with me. So on this slide, you've got a few just kind of contact details that you can use to help continue in this enhancement. You mentioned that you don't train a lot or don't focus a lot of your training sessions on psychology. So one way of doing that is contacting psychs or focusing on psychology outside your training hours. So you've got my contact details there on the left-hand side, my phone number, my website, my email. You're welcome to contact me directly or through a coach or through a tutor. On the right-hand side as well, there's different forms of how you work with psychologists. So you've got the classic view of you do a workshop, you can sit down in the room, but also you can do one-to-one meetings on the phone, on Skype. I can even work with you during the natural training session as well. So hopefully you can get an idea now that psychology is a lot more accessible and easier to use. And hopefully you've got a bit more of an idea now how you might go about using psychology within your own performance. So thank you very much, lads. And I'll finish it there and I'll pass it back over to John just to kind of finish it all up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Casper. And as I said to Casper, as he just did this session with the girls beforehand, I think it is probably, and I am biased, but I think this is the best one to start off with. You know, to have an expert in like Casper, who has been in and around handball for about the last 7 years, I think is what Bobby shared with us earlier.
No, yeah, about 5, I think it was.
5, 6, yeah. 5 years. So again, we're going to try and maximise his time. Both in terms of obviously doing some remote stuff, but equally, you know, when we do get back to do stuff in person, we'll try and get Casper to come out to facilitate discussions at training sessions, you know, and again, I think certainly the feeling and the theme that has come through is this isn't about, you know, you lying down on the couch, the virtual couch, and telling us all about your problems and issues. That gets into some clinical realms that maybe we can talk about, and maybe we might need to refer on to others. But this is about trying to enhance your performance and get you working towards excellence. And again, I think what I will try and do, I think I've managed to do this quite well, in addition to the recording that we've got, which we'll reshare, and we'll share this with both groups and the girls with both groups too, is we'll also share some of the discussions that people have put in the text boxes. One quick one, and I'm conscious that I need to boot Casper off so I can log in as England Handball as well as myself, and then start the nutrition talk, which we're about to go into. So guys, I'll probably give you a couple of minutes to take a quick comfort break and then to come back. And I'll just make sure that Matt Dixon's alerted to that. Is Jake, if you're on screen, if you can unmute yourself, and Casper, perhaps if you can just stop sharing for a second.
Hello.
How do you do a thumbs up in the chat?
I'm using my iPad, so I've got the emojis all.
Right, okay, because I know
I'm not on a laptop.
Luke asked, and I was there going, I have no idea. I know that on my laptop I've got the reactions button, which allows me to go like that, if you can see it, like Angel has done. Yeah. But yeah, we're just obviously just trying to share that technology. So don't know what you're on, Luke, at the moment, but that's obviously the answer to that. Or copy it as an icon off of another application and then paste it in, maybe. But obviously iPads are the way to go. Right, cool. So let's say, guys, at 5 past 2, we'll start Matt's session. If you can log off from this one and then log back on, and then we'll start at 5 past. And again, thanks, Casper, and we'll see you all soon.
See you all soon. Just wait for all the lads to get off, and then I'll start recording. Brilliant.